Right now, there's a billionaire somewhere making more money in the time it takes you to watch this video than most people make in a year. What's even more impressive is that they likely don't even contemplate money during this process. Meanwhile, the rest of us are over here checking our bank balance 3 times before buying a coffee, calculating if we can afford guacamole at Chipotle, and having actual anxiety attacks about subscription services we forgot to cancel. Welcome to Mind Vault, where we decode the psychology behind success and failure. Today, I'm revealing the specific mental frameworks that separate millionaires from everyone else. And spoiler alert, it has nothing to do with being smarter, working harder, or having rich parents. It's all about how their brains are wired to think about money in completely different ways. But first, let me destroy a myth that's keeping most people broke. The biggest lie about wealthy people is that they're obsessed with money. Actually, research from Stanford Graduate School of Business shows that millionaires think about money less frequently than the average person. While broke people spend hours every day worrying about money, rich people spend that same time thinking about value creation, systems, and opportunities. It's like the difference between someone who's starving and someone who owns a restaurant. The starving person thinks about food constantly, where to get it, how much it costs, and when they'll eat next. The restaurant owner thinks about creating experiences, managing systems, and building something that feeds thousands of people profitably. While they share the same basic need, their mental frameworks are entirely different. Here's what's really going to blow your mind. According to a study by Fidelity Investments, 88% of millionaires are self-made, meaning they didn't inherit their wealth. But here's the twist. Most of them don't have genius-level IQs, elite educations, or revolutionary business ideas. What they do have is a fundamentally different psychological relationship with money that most people never develop. Let me break down exactly how millionaires think differently, and then I'll show you how to rewire your own brain to think the same way. The first major difference is what psychologists call scarcity versus abundance mindset. Most people operate from a scarcity mindset, which means they view money as a limited resource that needs to be hoarded, saved, and protected. Rich people operate from an abundance mindset, viewing money as a tool that should be deployed strategically to create more money. Here's how the scenario plays out in real life. A scarcity-minded person sees a $500 course on investing and thinks, I can't afford to spend $500. An abundance-minded person sees the same course and thinks, I can't afford not to invest $500 in my financial education if it could help me make $50,000 more per year. The scarcity person is focused on protecting what they have. The abundance person is focused on growing what they have. This distinction lies in whether you approach your finances from a defensive or an offensive perspective. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about having more money to begin with. Studies show that people with abundance mindsets often start with less money, but end up wealthier because they're willing to take calculated risks and invest in growth opportunities. The second major difference is how they think about time and money. Poor people trade time for money. Rich people create systems that make money without their direct time investment. This phenomenon is why your wealthy friend seems to make money while sleeping, traveling, or playing golf, while you're stressed about taking a day off work. Let me give you a perfect example. The average person thinks, how can I work more hours to make more money? The millionaire considers, how can I create something once that will provide me with ongoing income? That's why you see wealthy people obsessed with creating products, building businesses, investing in real estate, or developing intellectual property. They're not just working, they're building money-making machines. Here's a fun thought experiment. Imagine you could either have a job that pays you $100,000 per year for the next 10 years, or you could spend 2 years building a business that pays you $50,000 per year forever with minimal ongoing work. Most people would take the job because $100,000 sounds like more than $50,000. Millionaires would take the business because they understand the concept of infinite returns versus finite returns. The third difference is how they view expenses versus investments. Average people categorize spending as either necessary expenses or frivolous purchases. Rich people categorize spending as either expenses, which should be minimized, or investments, which should be maximized if they have positive returns. This phenomenon is why you'll see a millionaire driving a 10-year-old Toyota, but spending $10,000 on a course that teaches them how to buy rental properties. To them, the car is an expense that gets them from point A to point B, while the course is an investment that could generate hundreds of thousands in future income. But here's where most people get confused. They think rich people are cheap because they won't spend money on certain things. Actually, rich people are incredibly generous spenders when they believe something will provide value or returns. They're just ruthlessly analytical about what constitutes a good investment versus emotional spending. The fourth major difference is their relationship with debt. Poor people think all debt is bad and try to avoid it. Rich people understand that there's good debt and bad debt, and they strategically use good debt to build wealth faster. Here's the distinction. Bad debt is borrowing money to buy things that lose value, like credit card debt for vacations, car loans for depreciating vehicles, or personal loans for consumption. Good debt is borrowing money to buy things that appreciate in value or generate income, like mortgages for real estate, business loans for profitable ventures, or student loans for education that increases earning potential. A perfect example. Most people think it's financially responsible to pay off their mortgage early, but a millionaire might keep their 3% mortgage and invest that extra money in the stock market, which historically returns 7 to 10% annually. They're essentially borrowing money at 3% to invest it at 8%, which creates a 5% profit margin on borrowed money. It's like having a money-making arbitrage opportunity. The fifth difference is how they think about risk. Average people try to eliminate risk. Rich people try to understand and manage risk. There's a huge psychological difference between these approaches. Most people think the safest financial strategy is keeping money in a savings account because they can't lose the principal. But millionaires understand that inflation risk means your safe money is actually losing purchasing power every year. They'd rather take calculated investment risks that historically beat inflation than accept the guaranteed loss of purchasing power from safe savings accounts. Here's a perfect example of this mindset difference. The average person thinks investing in the stock market is risky because the value goes up and down. The millionaire perceives investing in the stock market as risky, as it guarantees a loss of money due to inflation over time. The sixth major difference is their approach to financial education. Poor people think they can't afford financial education. Rich people think they can't afford financial ignorance. Most people will spend more money on entertainment in a month than they'll spend on financial education in a year. They'll pay $15 for Netflix, $12 for Spotify, $40 for dinner, and $60 for concert tickets. But they'll hesitate to spend $50 on a book that could teach them how to make an extra $10,000 per year. Millionaires have the opposite priority structure. They'll live in a modest apartment but spend thousands on courses, books, mentorship, and seminars that improve their financial knowledge. They understand that the return on investment for financial education is higher than almost any other investment they can make. The seventh difference is how they think about income streams. Average people think about getting a job. Rich people think about creating multiple income streams. This isn't just about making more money, it's about creating financial security through diversification. Most people have one income source, their job. If they lose their job, their income goes to zero. Millionaires typically have 5 to 7 different income streams, so losing any single source doesn't devastate their finances. These income streams might include salary from a job, profits from a business, rental income from real estate, dividends from investments, royalties from intellectual property, interest from loans they've made to others, or income from side projects. The goal isn't just more money, it's anti-fragile financial security. The eighth major difference between poor and rich people is how they perceive failure and setbacks. Poor people think financial setbacks are catastrophes to be avoided at all costs. Rich people view financial setbacks as educational expenses and opportunities for growth. Here's a mindset that will change your life. Millionaires don't try to avoid all financial mistakes. They try to make mistakes quickly, cheaply, and early so they can learn the lessons and apply them to bigger opportunities later. The average person avoids starting a business because they might lose $5,000. The millionaire starts the business, potentially loses the $5,000, learns why it failed, and uses that knowledge to build a successful business worth $500,000. The failure was actually a $5,000 education that led to massive success. Now, let me show you how to rewire your brain to think like a millionaire. Strategy number 1. Start tracking your money psychology. For 1 week, write down every financial decision you make and the reasoning behind it. Are you thinking from scarcity or abundance? Are you treating purchases as expenses or investments? Are you adopting a defensive or offensive financial strategy? This awareness alone will start shifting your mindset, because you'll begin noticing when you're thinking like a poor person versus thinking like a rich person. Strategy number 2. Implement the millionaire question framework. Before any financial decision, ask yourself these questions. How would this decision look to someone worth 10 million? Is the expenditure an expense or an investment? How could I turn this expense into an investment? What would someone with abundant money do in this situation? These questions force your brain to consider alternatives and think about money the way wealthy people do. Strategy number 3. Start small-scale wealth-building experiments. You don't need $1 million to start thinking like a millionaire. Buy 1 share of stock to understand investing. Sell something online to understand business. Rent out a spare room to understand passive income. The goal isn't to make life-changing money immediately. It's to start developing the neural pathways and experiences that wealthy people have. Strategy number 4. Invest in your financial education before you have money to invest. Read books, take courses, listen to podcasts, and follow successful investors. Make your financial education a higher priority than your entertainment budget. Rich people are rich partially because they know things about money that poor people don't know. You can't out-earn your knowledge level long-term. Strategy number 5. Practice abundance thinking in low-stakes situations. When you go to a restaurant, don't default to the cheapest item. Think about what would provide the best value and experience. When you see a course or book that could help you, think about the potential return on investment rather than just the upfront cost. Start training your brain to think about value creation and return on investment rather than just expense minimization. Strategy number 6. Develop multiple small income streams. Start a side hustle, invest in dividend stocks, create digital products, or develop any skill that could generate income independent of your job. The goal isn't to replace your job income immediately. It's to start building the financial infrastructure and mindset that creates long-term wealth. Here's the most important mindset shift. Stop thinking about money as something you get and start thinking about money as something you create. Employees get money from employers. Entrepreneurs create money by solving problems. Investors create money by deploying capital efficiently. When you shift from getting money to creating money, everything changes. You start looking for problems to solve, value to create, and opportunities to deploy resources rather than just trading time for wages. The ultimate millionaire mindset is this: money is not the goal. Money is the tool. Rich people don't want money for the sake of having money. They want money because it gives them freedom, options, and the ability to create value for others at scale. When you start thinking about money as a tool for creating freedom and value rather than a scarce resource to be hoarded, you've made the fundamental psychological shift that separates millionaires from everyone else. Remember, becoming wealthy isn't about making one perfect decision. It's about consistently making slightly better financial decisions over time. Small changes in thinking compound into massive changes in results. If this video shifted how you think about money, you absolutely need to subscribe to Mind Vault right now. We're building a community of people who understand the psychological patterns behind success and want to develop millionaire-level thinking in every area of their lives. Next week, I'm revealing the specific daily habits that separate high achievers from average performers. These aren't just productivity tips. These are psychological frameworks that reshape how successful people approach every aspect of their lives. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss it, and let me know in the comments. What's one financial belief you had that you now realize was keeping you broke? I'd love to hear about the mindset shifts this video created for you. Remember, the only difference between where you are and where you want to be is the quality of your thinking. change your thoughts about money, and you'll eventually change your bank account balance. Until next time, think abundantly, invest wisely, and keep unlocking the secrets of the millionaire mind.